Hello again, everyone. This is William Hazel, Executive Director, Virginia Beach Surf and Rescue Museum. Welcome to another episode of this cool museum, sharing some virtual tours of this very special place. We thought today we would just climb the historic lookout tower with you. You see that distinct feature, always the main element of the architecture. When you kind of see it on the boardwalk, the most recognizable feature. This is an old Herb Jones sketch from some years back. Kind of shows the really distinct tower. If we were walking up the lookout tower of the original building, 1903, I'd be taking you up into this tower, and you can notice the structure of the building. That's the 1903 life-saving station we're inside today, but the tower that we're walking up hasn't been installed yet. That would happen in 1933. The Coast Guard modernizes the building, and you see the very distinct lookout tower that was kind of added right to the outside of the architecture. And you see it in, like, you can always date the photographs. When you see either one of those towers, it kind of helps you date the photographs, or even the old postcard images about which lookout tower do you see. And you know, when you see that modern tower attached to the building, you're in a period that started in 1933. So the climb to the top, starting down there, ending up there, is only about 52 feet. It could be 52 or 56 feet, depending on where you are measuring it from. We're climbing basically about 5 stories, but when you look at the tower and climb it, it actually has the feeling of it being a lot taller than it is. And one of the fun things about doing our recent renovation was being able to allow tower tours. It was something that hadn't been possible before. And we do have a site restriction. Surfman Sparrow stands watch, and he marks that you're 42 inches tall. So when we have your little ones, if you join and you have little ones and you want to climb the tower, just make sure they're as tall as John. And we step in this way and actually take the next steps to the next level. And as we keep going up the lookout tower, I always like to pause here for a second. This is a fun shot that we have of Coast Guardsmen in this tower stairwell. Good black and white photo we have in the archive of the coasties right on this section of the stairwells. It's a mid-1960s picture, and you can see the railing, and you can see the wood structure, and you can see really how little things have changed, even though we've been a museum almost 40 years already, how little the structure has changed. And another big feature, you can't miss it, in the lookout tower is this amazing Blake board, this rescue board. This is a 1947 board. It was hand-built 1947 in this area, and it's 14 feet 6 inches long, and it represents that pre-war era. Even though this is built after the war, this represents that pre-war Blake board era, making hollow boards. This is a hollow board construction, a ribbed construction, and lifesavers or lifeguards would use a board of this type to paddle out into the surf to rescue swimmers that were in trouble. And of course, it was also used back in the day by surfers. People usually really did surf on boards this giant back in the day. And as we keep on climbing the next set of stairs, we get to one of the figures in the tower that we've put here, and a surfer. And his name is Bennett Simmons. And Bennett worked in this building. He was a lifesaver. He's one of the surfmen in this building, and he worked from 1891 all the way until 1913. So he was always with the United States Life-Saving Service. And our larger-than-life cutout is taken from a photograph that we had from right around the turn of the century. Bennett Simmons, his daughter, was Agnes Simmons, and he had a house and grew up right around the corner. As many of the surfmen that worked here, they lived here, not necessarily in the building, but what they did was build homes really close to the station. And Bennett was one of those surfmen that did that, and he had a little cottage that was right on 23rd Street. His daughter became Agnes Winston, Mrs. Winston. A lot of people in Virginia Beach remember her as Mrs. Winston. And that cottage that's there today, that is their ex-home, is actually now Tautog's restaurant. So the one thing we have to remember about Ben, he wouldn't have climbed this tower because he was a surfman. He was in the life-saving service. He retires in 1913. Before the Coast Guard puts this tower in the building, he would have climbed that old tower that we saw in the picture. Now, a lot of visitors, when they come in and they want to climb the tower and they ask about climbing the tower, a question we get a lot at our front desk and in our emails is, can we go up to the top of the lighthouse? And sometimes it makes us laugh, and sometimes we wish we were a lighthouse. But in this case, no, we cannot go to the top of the lighthouse because I'm not in a lighthouse. The life-saving station, this tower, never had a light. Who was climbing to the top were Coast Guardsmen who were going on lookout. They were literally just using this tower with looking glasses or binoculars to look at ships at sea, to look at coastal patrol, to just have an eye on the coastal water, looking at tides, looking at surf, looking at conditions, and reporting that back up and down to all of the other stations along the coast. We have a magnificent lighthouse in Virginia Beach to climb, but this isn't it. This is a real rare thing to be able to get inside, to go up a genuine life-saving station and climb this 1903 lookout tower. And working our way up to the next landing of the tower, we come to these really distinct flags on the wall. And these are flags that we actually still fly at the museum. They're known as storm flags, and they're based on the weather. A lot of the times when you're walking up and down the boardwalk and you walk past the museum, it's not uncommon to see us flying this flag. It's a single pennant, and it's what the Coast Guard today calls a small craft warning. And that means the wind and the water is pretty rough. It gets to a certain level and they put up the warning. And you'll often see us fly a single pennant. If you're walking the boardwalk and you see the museum flying two of these pennants, one underneath the other, you are a brave soul because it's really windy on the boardwalk today because the two flags represent a gale. We do not ever like to hang the big square flags, the one example that you see on the top. Those are the hurricane flags, and as the severity of the weather dictates, sometimes you'll fly a single flag, or sometimes you'll even fly two different flags. And another character that hangs out with us in the lookout tower is our Coast Guardsman. Coastie here, we don't have his name. He's from a photograph from World War II. And we haven't quite been able to nail down his name. If anybody watching recognizes this guy, please let us know. But he does represent the Coast Guardsmen that served in this building. Remember, that began in 1915, and then this was an active station all the way through 1969. We like having a photograph of a Coastie from World War II in the tower, because this building actually served as kind of a launching point for a lot of Coast Guardsmen. The small stations on the coasts were used as launching points. A lot of Coast Guardsmen came here before they were deployed to war, and we see the logbook really heavy with names during the war years. A lot of Coast Guardsmen would only spend a week or 2 weeks stationed in this building, waiting for their turn to go into the Atlantic. So we are proud to have the nameless Coast Guardsman in the building, but we would really like to find out who he was. And as you can see now, we're almost at the top. We've almost made our 52-foot climb, our 5-story climb up to the top of the tower. As you may have noticed, the steps at this point, coming up to this point of the tower, are pretty normal. The angle of the steps, they're pretty wide. They're a fairly normal angle that you might even have in a lot of houses. It's actually pretty easy to climb up here. So when we do the tours and I get a little tower, a little higher, I'm sorry. This is the part where I actually say the top of the tower is a little bit steeper. You do have to be a little more careful on the last set of steps. So here we are, right almost to the top of the steps, and this last little part of the staircase is much steeper than the other part, but it's still pretty easy to navigate. It's not quite as steep as a ladder, and it's not really that difficult to climb up. And then you take your last couple of steps, and as you can see from the beautiful view behind me, you've made it. You've made it to the top of the historic lookout tower, and here we are with Surfman John Sparrow that waits to say hi to you when he's up here. A lot of people kind of think John's the ghost that we have here in the tower. Now, thing to remember about John, he was a Coast Guardsman. He started in the life-saving service. He started working right here on this property in 1892. He would have known the old building. And then he served in this building from 1903 all the way until John retired from the service in 1917. So he spent 2 years in the United States Coast Guard. But another thing about John, retired 1917, and this tower, this structure that I'm in, remember, is 1933. So once again, we have the cool cutouts and it's fun, but historically we have to remember John never climbed this tower. But maybe he did, because he lived a long life and he saw this building. He most likely climbed the tower as a guest. I imagine that the active Coast Guard would have brought him up on the tower. So you made it to the top of the tower, and now you get the fun part of being able to go outside. And you've made it. Kind of take that fun step onto this little narrow catwalk that we have. It's actually plenty wide, as you can see, to accommodate people. And when you take the tower tour with us, we have one simple rule: you don't put things on the rail, because it's pretty easy to knock them off, and then we have to spend the rest of the afternoon trying to get your phone off the roof. So I'll let Jessica, our camera person, kind of walk you around the tower and enjoy the view. It's pretty windy today, a little bit noisy, but I just kind of let her show you the space. So thanks for climbing the tower with us today. Remember, it's always open to members. Part of membership is being able to enjoy the lookout tower. And then you can check back as we do events and special activities. Sometimes on those days we open the tower as well. I appreciate you hanging out with me, and I hope at some point on your next visit to this cool museum that you'll get a chance to climb the tower yourself.